Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills as the regular season finally set to get going. Bills and Cardinals in Orchard Park, Highmark Stadium on Sunday. Joined by Sal Mayorana here of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, as always, and Bo Brack from GoPHNX.com. PHNX Sports covered the Cardinals for more than a decade and is very much on the beat. Bo, thanks so much for joining us here.
Sal, Adam, excited. Kickoff is closing and drawing nearer each by the hour, so it's exciting. I mean, I'm really pumped to see what this 2024 season is going to be about for these two teams.
Yeah, right. I think so many questions, like we were just talking to the pre-show. I mean, way more questions than answers at this point. I mean, let's just start in general. Cards 4-13 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray back and healthy. Marvin Harrison Jr. part of the mix now on offense. Where does this franchise stand? Because I think Bills fans and so many around the country have so many questions about the team that's actually coming to Orchard Park on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, you know, the previous season to 2023, 2022, they went 4-13. But, man, what a different way to go 4-13. I mean, that was the reason that the team decided to hit the full reset button and kind of make some choices as far as getting rid of a head coach and a GM that they had just extended for 5 years and immediately just sent them packing and brought in their first GM outside the organization in nearly 3 decades, Imani Ossenfort, who has New England ties, and he chose Jonathan Gannon as his head coach, and they immediately set to get to work to tear down this roster and then kind of change the culture around the Arizona Cardinals, which desperately needed. And they identified, one of the big things was Kyler Murray going to be their quarterback going forward beyond last season, and after he returned from his ACL tear. And they figured that, that's the guy they want to move forward with. And I think that's the right decision. They've empowered K1, and now they're starting to surround him with talent across this roster. And they tore everything down in the 23 offseason. They've started to build it back up with investing in premium positions at the tackle spot, the defensive side of the football, and now bringing in a premier playmaker in Marvin Harrison Jr. And there's a lot of excitement. I mean, to go from 4 wins to a playoff spot, is it playoffs or bust? I don't necessarily think so. But there's expectations now that you can start judging the Arizona Cardinals on wins and losses, where before you were just like, okay, are they going the right direction? Do they have the right decision makers in place?
Bo, they hired Gannon last year after Cliff Kingsbury left the building. They go from Hollywood Cliff there to Gannon. Can you maybe give us a little bit of insight on maybe the different? I mean, Kingsbury did get them to a playoff in 21 with Murray, who was healthy, but then it all went downhill. Can you kind of give us a little bit of an insight on the difference maybe between Gannon and, as I said, Hollywood Cliff there?
Yeah, right. No, there's a huge difference between these two head coaches. I think that there was the previous coaching staff under Kingsbury would often kind of get blindsided in this game of chess as far as, trying to go tit for tat against, opposing teams and scheming and all game planning and all that. And it seemed like Cliff would get overwhelmed in that and then say, hey, we got to go back to the drawing board and really kind of pay attention to the details. And it seemed like that was just kind of coach speak, where when you talk to Jonathan Gannon and you just see him and you hear him talk to him at the press conferences, or you hear him interact with his players, or just what they have in place as far as the processes that are going to get them ready for each and every Sunday, you start to realize that he's all about the details. It's not just something he says after they get, their butts kicked in the previous game. Like, they're trying to stay ahead of this, innovative on both sides of football, 3 phases of football now with the new kickoff rules. So, I think that Jonathan Gannon is making sure that they're always going to be in the right spot, not behind the 8 ball. As far as the X's and O's go. And then he's found, I think him and Monty Ossenfort, their general manager, have done a good job in identifying players that love the game and are here to, help the Arizona Cardinals dig themselves out of last place in the NFC West and make their impact wearing this uniform in the NFL. So it's a different caliber of player, and it's a way different caliber of coach who I think there's more to it and understands what it means to kind of really look at the details and emphasize them.
Bo, looking at your Twitter or X feed today, I see the messaging coming out of Phoenix about Kyler Murray, right?
Mhm.
Passing game coordinator, talking to the media, defending him, whatever the size issue he sees, the field, all of the things you would expect. But I think people are asking, what is the state of his game right now? Is he fully healthy?
Yeah.
And, his game and all his arm, all of that. What have you seen from him in the preseason and the run up to where things are?
He is fully healthy. And, I think the biggest difference here is an organization that empowers him. I mean, the last time we saw Kyler going into a season healthy, he was coming off of a pretty ugly public contract negotiation. And the organization dropped the ball by incorporating a homework clause that made all parties involved look bad. And it seemed like they were never able to recontract between the decision makers and their franchise quarterback. They exit. Kyler Murray's still there. He's got that big contract kicking in this season. And what JG and Monty have done since the very jump is empower and embolden Kyler Murray, and it's paid off because he's such a competitor. He's got such a unique and impressive skill set. Guy drafted in the top 10 in 2 professional sports leagues, including number 1 overall in the NFL. They believe in what he can do as far as his arm talent and as far as his ability to move, get out and run. And they started kind of bet on Kyler Murray, and he's paying it off. He's showing these guys that he was worth of the investment. And, Drew Terrell, the passing game coordinator today, that was just kind of more icing on top of the cake because that's just been the consistent messaging that we've heard from the players in that locker room, the coaches on the coaching staff, front office members, scouts, anybody around this facility, which Kyler Murray has been in since the end of the regular season, preparing for this season. So I think he's locked in. And you hear people say he's got a chip on his shoulder. He rightfully does have a chip on his shoulder because I think some of the narratives got out of hand and there's a lot of misconceptions. And I think he's now on a mission to kind of right those wrongs.
Look, Bo, Kyler Murray, I think, is a terrific player, but they're going to rely on the running game. It looks like in this. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. We can talk about the matchup now, and he's part of that running game clearly.
Yeah.
But can you kind of tell us, what are we looking at with James Conner, behind this offensive line? I don't know much about their offensive line. Yeah. I know they led the league last year in yards per attempt. That was also partly Murray. But what can we expect here in this game against this Bills defense, which wasn't great against the run last year? What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, look, this is a team that wants to be a bully in the run game, and it starts with those in the trenches with that offensive line that is geared up to run the football, and that's what they want to do. They think kind of creating that conflict only benefits whoever their quarterback is, and it happens to be Kyler Murray. But James Conner, like a fine wine, man, he gets better with age. He's 29 years old in a contract year. He had his best season as a pro with 5 yards per carry. Last 4 games of the season last year, he was just out of control. 5 touchdowns. He went over the 1,000-yard mark for the first time, which is kind of crazy to think about because he had some successful years in Pittsburgh before that. He had an 18 rushing touchdown performance in 2021. But that was his best year by far on the ground. And they added to that run game. They added the best blocking tight end in the draft and Tip Ryman in the 3rd round. They added Trey Benson, who's probably the in-house successor to James Conner. And they're moving, Paris Johnson Jr., who I think his strength right now is run blocking to the left tackle position. And you got guys like Will Hernandez, Yelda Froholt, and Evan Brown, who are all just they're ready to run block. And I think that's their solution to maybe being a little bit ill-equipped in pass pro. That sets them up for better success in the passing game. And they really just that's their identity. They really want to establish the run, and they won't get away from it if they have a couple unsuccessful drives early in the game. So yeah, this is an offense that when you look at it, added just Marvin Harrison Jr., you know what Kyler Murray can do with the deep ball, but really, really want to establish the run.
So that's right where I was going to go next, Bo. As far as we all know the pedigree, the high draft pick in Marvin Harrison Jr., what have you seen from him, his fit into this offense? How much talent is he bringing to the table, and how ready is he to have a significant impact in the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marvin Harrison Jr., he's matched the hype, right? And nearly 6'4" playmaker. His father, obviously, he's got a bust in Canton. Marvin Harrison Sr., who was Peyton Manning's #1 target for so long, and he matches his dad's, legendary work ethic with his own. First in, He's getting in before the sun rises, and he's one of those guys that needs to have the amount of time he's putting in away from the facility kind of he's just kind of looked after from his head coach. Jonathan Gannon said he has to scale things back so he's fresh when he's going at the facility and on the practice field. So the work ethic has kind of taken on its own kind of mythology, which is great for the Arizona Cardinals, for a guy that they invested a fourth overall pick. And I think that the only thing is it's such a rhythm and timing offense. They didn't have it. He had 3 snaps in the preseason debut, and that was it. And we didn't get any action between him and Kyler Murray. That might be something they might have to knock the rust off early on. But I think in the long run, it is going to be, just based on how competitive and how much work both the quarterback and wide receiver are willing to put in, should get on schedule pretty soon. But if it's going to be rocky, it's going to be week 1.
So,
now,
Sal, before you jump in here, Sal, just to kind of date this, I covered Marvin Harrison Jr.
at Syracuse, huh?
At Syracuse.
Yeah.
And Sal, kind of dates me a little bit here too. So just so you know what you're flanked with here on this podcast in terms of,
you guys know, right? I mean, you kind of pull back the curtain and you see that it's not just lip service. I mean, that's who his father was, and he's he's a chip off the old block, and that's what they're all about. And I think that when you know what Marvin Harrison Sr. was up against size-wise and physicality-wise, Marvin Harrison Jr. was blessed with a different size, right? He's all bit 6'4", 212 pounds. He's lanky, and he's got that great speed. So I think it's senior match, with his work ethic, matched with an unbelievable size and physicality.
I made mention of the fact that he only played the 3 snaps in preseason in my game preview.
Yeah.
Now, clearly that was by design, but my thought was, it's one thing for Kyler Murray to play 3 snaps or Josh Allen in the preseason. This was a rookie, as good a pedigree as he's got. Did that decision, I don't know, you guys in Arizona who cover the team, did that surprise you at all that they would take a rookie who probably could have benefited a little bit from some actual NFL action, and now he's going to go into this first game with really nothing? Speed of the game, that type of stuff. Was that a controversial decision or by Gannon or no?
Yeah, it wasn't it was a bit polarizing for sure, because everybody wanted to see your new shiny toy, put into the lineup and see what he was made of. But with the decision that Kyler wasn't going to play at all, it made a little bit more sense. Yeah. And they really focused on their joint practice with the Indianapolis Colts this preseason. And that's where we got to see the starters get together, the first team offense, and kind of work on their timing together and kind of get their first reps. But is that going to be enough? And I think that's where people's sticking point is. Like, they probably would have benefited to get out there together, but Marvin Harrison Jr. going out there and catching passes from, QB2, Clayton Tune and Desmond Ridder, maybe not would have been as beneficial as people would have originally thought. So right. It's a risky play for sure. And Gannon's even admitted that, like, if it doesn't work, it's back to the drawing board. But they wanted to kind of err on the side of being as close to a complete roster and healthy as possible going into the season to give them a chance against a pretty tough slate to open things up.
So let's go to the defense, Adam.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are looking at this game, and we could see some points because Arizona can do some things on offense, clearly. But everything that I've read, again, better than I, everything that I've read about the Cardinals, though, is their defense is going to be a problem this year. And in particular, the pass rush. I know they don't have Olajari, and they lost the rookie for a while. So, Josh Allen, give him time. That's dangerous, Bo. Yeah. What are we looking at there on the pass rush especially?
Yeah, you're not looking at much. You're going to have to find some unique production from some unknown places. There's no proven commodity, pass rusher. They got a guy in Dennis Gardeck who's emerged and earned a role from a special teamer to a guy coming off the edge to a guy that in Zaven Collins, who's a former first rounder, but he was a off-ball linebacker. He switched positions last year and still learning the game. And those are your starters coming off the edge, but it's a rotation. And then a 5th-round pick out of Clemson, Xavier Thomas, who I think is really the only legitimate option that can pen his ears back and get after a quarterback. But you're right. The the Bills give up the least amount of sacks last season, and the Cardinals down the stretch, they got one, token sack where Justin Fields stepped out of bounds over the last 6 games. They got no production as far as off the edge last season. So if they are able to accomplish that at all on Sunday, it would be a welcome sight for sure. But it's not something that anybody would predict or anticipate. So that's a big issue. That was to go with the status quo, and the Ojulari injury and then Darius Robinson injury after that were brutal blows. But Jonathan Gannon, who was the defensive coordinator for the Eagles when they went to the Super Bowl, racked up 70 sacks that season. Him and Nick Rawlis are going to have to scheme something up in order to get some pressure to where, Josh Allen doesn't just have all day to throw and just pick them apart with his new array of wide receivers.
A lot of that, you just said it right there, the new array of wide receivers. A lot of the question is here, who is Josh Allen going to throw to? Now, you move on from Stephon Diggs, so there isn't necessarily a bona fide A1, prototypical receiver on this roster at this point. A lot to be defined in that regard. So acknowledging all of that, in talking to the coaches and players out there, Bo, what's your sense from a defensive standpoint of how they're going to approach this thing and trying to limit Allen and dealing with a lot of those unknowns in the passing game for Buffalo?
Yeah, I think really what they want to do is obviously keep Josh Allen from really getting explosives with his legs and allowing him to get outside the pocket and really make plays there. And then, the off schedule stuff. I think that defensively, they do like what they've added to each level, right? They improve the interior of the defensive line, even with Darius Robinson, the 27th overall pick out of Missouri, being unavailable on injured reserve right now with a calf injury. But they did add a couple, veteran free agents that I think just kind of raises the talent floor there, and they won't just be, bodied in the line of scrimmage. And then they've got some good, off-ball linebackers and Kazir White and Mac Wilson, who played for the Patriots last season, came over on a free agent deal, and then a revamped defensive back room that I think they really like. They invested 3 top 100 picks in the last 2 drafts on second and third round picks that are going to play some heavy snaps in the defensive secondary that I think, can they play that complementary, like rush and cover? I mean, I don't know if they have the personnel to truly generate that rush, but can they cover enough to where they, Josh Allen isn't just going to get you both ways, explosive runs and explosive pass plays?
One thing I do know about that defense in Arizona, they got 2 great safeties, right? I mean, Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson. I don't know, they might be the best 2 players on that defense. I mean, I don't know, but you can tell us. But what I wanted to ask, given that, we all think here in Buffalo that the Bills are going to do a lot of short passing. They're going to, try to get matchups in the short areas of field, yards after catch type of thing. How do you think the Arizona defense will be able to match up if that's what ends up happening? If we start seeing Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman and whoever else is going to be in the short areas, how do you think the Cardinals match up against that?
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see if they set themselves up to kind of bait it to where they can, jump one of those routes and make a play happen. I mean, it's going to be important. We've seen with the JG defenses that they'll almost do that and let teams kind of keep everything in front of them without giving up, the big plays. And would they take it and just here and there be able to find their way off the football field, force a punt or maybe force a turnover? So, they did a good job in getting some guys who were opportunistic at the previous level, at the collegiate level. Will it translate? I think that's going to be big for these guys. And Max Melton out of Rutgers and Rabbit Taylor Demerson out of Texas Tech, who had 10 picks there in the Big 12, Can they maybe get their hands on the football and into what they view as their strength, their offense's hands? So it's really going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out because of, the wholesale changes on the Cardinals defensive end and what's going on and what they're incorporating on the Bills offensive side of the football.
You talk about those changes, bro, and if you look at the Buffalo defense, right, the injury to Matt Milano at linebacker, the moving on from Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde at safety and the questions they have at that position impacted by injury in the preseason. I guess, as we wrap this up here, where do you think this matchup kind of hinges, if there is kind of one or two places. I think the Buffalo secondary is a major area that starting with the teams are going to really try and exploit that. And how capable is Arizona of coming in here and pulling off an upset in this game?
I think they're very capable of doing it. I mean, if Arizona was going to travel east and play Buffalo, ideally it would be early September. I think that when this game is scheduled, you don't want to play the Bills really ever. But if you had to, the first week of the season isn't the worst, with changes in the coaching staff across the roster, an exodus of captains, and, obviously preparing for the future and understanding what comes with that. But, I think that the Arizona Cardinals, they won on the road last year in Pittsburgh and played a brand of football that I think would play very well in this game on Sunday, where, it's hard-nosed and really established thing run. But, guys, I think this game is both tight ends really intrigue me in this game. From Trey McBride to Dalton Kincaid, I think both of these guys are poised to make big plays and potentially make the game-changing play that could sway this game to one of their team's side. Like Trey McBride with Matt Milano out of this. I mean, I saw the stat with Milano on the field. The middle third of the field, they had no touchdowns and 5 interceptions with Milano on the field, and then 7 TDs to no picks with him out. I mean, that's I think screams to me that Trey McBride, the tight end that emerged for 80 catches and 800 yards last year for the Arizona Cardinals, should have a decent time finding some open space. And Kyler Murray is willing to bet against him against any safety in this league. So I think that's a key matchup where, Trey McBride can continue to have and parlay his 23 success here in 2024.
I'd like to close with this, if I could ask you this, Bob. I made this point on radio yesterday that I thought with this opener, I'm not going to say the Cardinals are a 4-13 team. They are the underdog in this game. But it seems to me that this is kind of an ideal opener for the Cardinals. They're an NFC team that the Bills really don't know anything about. I mean, that goes vice versa, I understand. Mm-hmm. But when you're the inferior team, you give me like they would have a certain advantage playing against the Bills because the Bills don't know anything about them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that we saw that on display a lot last season, where there was a lot of teams that would come in and they thought, hey, they're going against one of the worst rosters in the NFL, where he just hand us our W, and Jonathan Gannon and his coaching staff got his team ready to play. And with good coaching and an elevated talent improved talent on the roster, I think it just bodes well for the Arizona Cardinals to potentially surprise a lot of the teams on their schedule. And I think week 1 presents an opportunity where there's some vulnerability there, with the Bills that you might not see down the line in the regular season. So I think that if there was a time that you wanted to face the Bills, I think this is it in week 1. Not saying I'm willing to go out and go on my show and say, hey, take the Cardinals on the money line. I'm not. I still think a lot has to go the right way for the Arizona Cardinals, just because when you got a player the caliber of Josh Allen, who's elite, that you, especially in where the Cardinals lack on defense, that it's still going to be take a Herculean effort. But I think the Cardinals have an absolute shot at this, just with the additions that they made and with their quarterback play. If it can be just as consistent from them, win this game.
Yeah, and by the very nature of openers themselves in the NFL, teams are figuring themselves out as much as they are their opponents. So many interesting subplots and storylines to this game. Sal, your video froze up, but we still have audio from you?
I am still here. I'm looking at a blank screen, so you can close it out now, Adam, because as usual, my Wi-Fi craps out.
All right. Hey, Bo, before we let you go, again, Bo Brack, go phnx.com, PHNX Sports. As Bills fans try to continue to familiarize themselves with the Cardinals over the course of the weekend and leading into Sunday, where can they go to check out some of your work and maybe learn more about this team?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about this team every day. You can find us on YouTube, PHNX Sports, and also you can see those clips that you mentioned, PHNX_Cardinals on Twitter and Instagram, and you'll just kind of see how this team's preparing to face the Bills and get some insight, from their opponent come Sunday.
All right, Bo, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today.
Likewise, guys.
Have
a great rest of your season.
Bo. Appreciate it. Even though you can't see me. Have a good one.
Hey, Sal, we'll have a full wrap on the game. Sal and I will here on Believe in Bills Sunday night. Bills and Cardinals, 1:00 kickoff Eastern Time, Highmark Stadium on Sunday. For Sal Majorana and Bo Brack, This is Adam Benini, WGRZ TV. Thanks for being with us here on Bleav.